السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Masjid, Carpark podcast, episode 74. We have a very special episode for you today.
MashaAllah. Mufti Saab, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Mufti Saab, all the way from the heart of the empire. And he's come as a representative of our new monarch, our new king, King Charles, and representing to check the loyal subjects of the empire. How we doing this distant colony? MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair for visiting us and blessing our shores, and it's an honor to have you again here. This is number 2 with Mufti Saab, and Alhamdulillah.
Hopefully it'll be more exciting than the last one. And more organized.
Inshallah. No, it's a podcast. It's not a dars per se. So we're not going through a text, inshallah. So hopefully we get to know Mufti Saab a bit more and take benefit, inshallah. Bidnillah. Mufti Saab, which trip?
I'm not sure. I think it's number 4, or
MashaAllah.
5.
So Australia is growing on you. It feels like for us that we are, it's like we leave you, we see you once a year, and we continue where we left off.
Right.
So we only know you for about 3 weeks now, which is a lot, alhamdulillah.
But it's always a pleasure.
Barakallahu fi.
Absolutely.
Alhamdulillah. So
the rest of the year I have to put up with this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. The pearls of wisdom that are dropped, sometimes I'm wasting those pearls on you, I feel like. And I have not seen any change. So, but anyway, any improvement.
Friends like these, right?
Yeah. I feel like I'm going backwards, but anyway. But alhamdulillah. How's the trip so far?
Alhamdulillah. I got over the jet lags because I stayed in Melbourne for 4 days. So usually I would stay here for 2 days, go to Sydney, then go to Perth. But this time I just was too tired. I said, let me just stay in Melbourne. So I've stayed here for 4 days.
Oh, it's not because of Sydney, because you're tired.
Just because when I booked the ticket, I was sick.
Okay.
So I was just lacking, motivation. I said, look, I'm not going to do too sick. Because when you're feeling sick at that point, you don't expect to feel different afterwards. So
just for the Sydney people, just wanted to make sure, because there's a lot of Melbourne-Sydney rivalry.
Yeah, so inshallah after Ramadan I'm going to give Sydney its due, inshallah.
You don't have to. There's nothing you owe. You owe nothing to the people.
After Ramadan.
I'm thinking of coming back out of Ramadan, because when you come in Ramadan it's very rush.
Yes.
So I want to come after Ramadan sometime during the year, so I'll give Sydney its due, inshallah.
And Melbourne.
They don't deserve it.
We'll try Melbourne, inshallah.
No, we'll work it out. We'll talk after this podcast.
Inshallah. MashaAllah, I think everybody knows who Mufti Saab is, and alhamdulillah, across Melbourne, several programs Sheikh has done in various masajid, alhamdulillah, and especially in this Ramadan. It's a very somber Ramadan this year, more so than I don't think we had a Ramadan like this, where there's a collective consciousness of the community, and you can see that people feeling what's going to brothers and sisters. So there's that usual celebration of Ramadan, and excitement is really dampened. I'm not sure if it's in other places, but definitely in Australia, in our masajid, our general community, especially in our masjid in Doncaster. I think I mentioned Mufti Saab. We have a lot of Palestinians. We have people from Gaza. Even the day that you came, the day before, one of the brothers, he lost 7 family members in Gaza. Tragic. So it's very close to home, and so it's constantly there on a daily basis in the masjid. Even if Umrah group goes, it's like I went with the Umrah group, and it was very different to normal Umrah groups, because you're so close. You're so close. It's like, it's 1,000 kilometers away. And in terms of Australia, that's very, very close. So we're really sort of feeling like this year, I think there's a community as an ummah, as we should.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Kashif Ulum Youth Leadership Academy will be operating our full-time and part-time Alim and Alima courses here at Pillars of Guidance Community Centre, on-site and in person, inshallah. We'll be running a stream for brothers and a separate stream for sisters. Inshallah, you can register your expression of interest on this link above. Our team of dedicated ulama have been training and developing scholars for more than a decade in various parts of Melbourne. Alhamdulillah, we've now relocated to PGCC in the southeast of Melbourne. Our graduates have gone on to become active imams, teachers, and youth leaders in the community. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the one who takes a path to seek knowledge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make the path to Jannah easy for him. So don't miss this opportunity. Go to the link above and take the next step in Islamic learning journey and become an heir to the prophetic legacy inshallah.
Last time we introduced your book, the book that you read on marriage, which was your own work, mashallah. We were going through that yesterday, certain aspects of that. And I've read the book, alhamdulillah, before I got married or remarried. So it was beneficial. But there was a lot of questions to ask. That was one of the things we were talking about yesterday, the list of questions to ask a prospective. Obviously, you don't have to ask all of them. Yeah. But we were kind of joking a little bit that in this time, the criteria for marriage, like the list of the things that men and women are expecting, whether it's by design of the apps that people are using, that they have so many options that they almost make it impossible for themselves to get married. And we were thinking that is this list like the the options on the app where you ask too many questions?
Yeah, I guess maybe the other way to do it is that list is actually just all potential possible questions that you can ask. So it's not for everybody. So it's going to be for somebody. For example, there's a question like, do you want to stay in town or do you want to move?
Yep.
So it's somebody who really wants, for them it's important that they need to stay in town. They need to ask that question. Otherwise, not everybody needs to ask that question. Do you want to work after you get married, when you have children and so on? So it's just whatever's relevant to you.
Yeah, so you can pick and choose some of them.
You can pick and choose. You only pick and choose, and you definitely don't want to make like a list, take on a piece of paper and then start asking questions.
Like
it needs to be casual. Although it seems too much like an interview.
Yeah.
I've seen people put off with that.
Right.
Put off, yeah, because of that.
Yeah, I heard of a marriage proposal in a certain country where the alim went to ask the alima, so she took an examination of Bukhari Sharif from him, and he walked out because I'm looking for a wife, not for a
maybe she's got a madrasa and she wants a Shaykh al-Hadith.
That's true.
Yeah.
One question that I have for that is, what was the motivation behind this book? Or what?
Just
what
dealing with
it?
marital issues for over 20 years, and then I was invited a number of times to go and speak about marriage in different places. And I thought, why don't you just write a book that's practical? Because I didn't read too many books before.
Yep.
Right. I read them when I got married, and that was about 26, 27 years ago. But since then, I never read any book on marriage. Okay. But remembering that time was more theoretical rather than practical. So I thought there probably needs to be a practical book there, just based on, and I think I had a lot of anecdotes, a lot of scenarios, a lot of cases, because I'd been dealing with those cases for about 20 years. And most ulama do that. They deal with these issues. So then I thought, let's put it into a book and put it out there. Sure. But I think the success of the book is in the fact that before I published the book, before it went to press, I sent it to at least 20 different people. To get me feedback. Inshallah. Mostly women, because I'm not a woman.
Okay.
I'm not a woman, never been a woman, never will be a woman. Sure. So I don't know how,
Inshallah.
Inshallah. So I wanted it to be relevant to both. And we can't always speak on women because, especially in marriage, men and women are very different, right? So I thought I had it, understood it. So then I sent it to, out of the 20 people, more of them were women. And there were some alimas, and then there were non-alimas, just regular, women, and some professional women. And I tried to get as much feedback as possible. And then I actually incorporated whatever feedback I found useful. I put that in there.
Nice.
So I think that's why there's been very less criticism, because I tried to preempt that. And I think that's a good idea. Before you write a book, you send it to a number of a cross-section of pre-readers so that you get that idea. So it can be as useful as possible, and you've mitigated a lot of the
potential criticisms,
yeah, because a single person can't always think of everything.
Yeah,
you just can't.
Yeah, and the community that you are sort of the makeup of UK is probably very different to Australia. Generally, the community that you are dealing with, obviously there are, because being sort of westernized society, so we have a lot of overlaps. Generally, it's the Muslims, or a large percentage of the community be from a subcontinent culture in the UK. Yeah, here, because we have a lot of Turks, especially in Melbourne, and Arabs, Lebanese. That's like the two biggest communities, and Egyptians as well, and other communities as well. Albanians, Bosnians. So it's probably very different. My father, rahmullah, he was dealing with so many family, 50 years. He was dealing in Brazil and Switzerland and in Australia for 30 years. So he would never deal with a lot, like when the case became very complicated, or he would like send the Lebanese family to the Lebanese sheikh. and the Somali family to the Somali sheikh, because he said there's a lot of things, the uruf or the culture, that we actually don't understand what's as a Pakistani, even though he was with Arabs and so forth. He's very multicultural in the sense of dealing with all the communities. But he said that there's like nuances to specific cultures that only that sheikh would actually pick up on it much quicker and be a bit more useful to that couple.
But do you think as time goes on now,
that's a generation thing? I think at that time when he's operating, it's still that first generation. I think I try not to deal with older couples anyway.
Okay. Yep.
I just tell them I can't deal with your case. I'm dealing with younger couples.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if an older Gujarati couple come to me, I say, look, I can't deal with your case, right? Because I can't speak on their level in Gujarati, in Urdu and at that level.
Yes.
So I just refuse. I say, look, you're better off going somewhere else. I won't be fair with you to be able. I won't be able to do justice. So I just completely. Now I also take into consideration the 8 years I spent in America, and there the community was very, very mixed as compared to the UK.
Okay.
I would think Australia is in between the two. America is much more liberal and much more different, much more assimilated. Right? England is not assimilated. It has its own unique way of being very proudly British, but still very Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, whatever. It's kind of really interesting. That is.
Okay.
Right? I don't think anybody.
But
feels
proudly
like
British.
I don't think British in the sense that they're from England. We don't agree with everything that goes on, obviously, as anywhere that you wouldn't, right? But I've just seen that in Canada and America, I still think people are being apologetic. This country has done so much for us. You just will never hear that in England or somebody saying that. This is England. This is our country. I mean, take it for granted. That's what it is.
Right.
I think Australia is in between the two, right? Australia is not as liberal and assimilated as America is. And there's still a lot of traditional setup as England is. America is very different, and just the way the whole thing is. It's 50% of the masajid don't have imams in America, right? Whereas that's surprising for you to even hear about. In England, you would never see that. A masjid without an imam, they'll have somebody or the other. Whereas, I don't want to go into that discussion right now, but I took that into consideration as well. But
that experience,
definitely. And I say at the beginning of the book that I can't cover every aspect because marriage is about culture. And I can't literally discuss every culture. Right? So the dominant culture is the Indian Pakistani culture. So I probably will address issues in there. But because I have dealt with a lot of Moroccans and general Middle Eastern Arabs and so on, less Gulf Arabs. Because remember, Arabs are not one. The Middle Eastern Arabs are very different from North African Arabs.
Yep.
And then the Gulf Arabs are different. Completely different cultures and different ideologies and things like that as well. So you can't discuss every culture, but I try to discuss mostly the bigger issues.
For the British.
It's not for the British, it's for the West.
For the West.
In general. Although it's actually, the book is nearly translated into Urdu. And it's actually getting published in Pakistan as well.
Wow.
And it's already published in India.
Congratulations.
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah.
Alhamdulillah.
Because the English-speaking crowd found it very relevant in Pakistan
Right.
and India, and it's too expensive to send from the UK. So we're getting, India already has it published by ilmstore.in, I think it's called Ilm Store. They published in India. In Pakistan, Nasiha Institute is publishing it.
Oh, nice. MashaAllah.
Right. So, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, the UK culture, there's one overlap I realized between the UK Muslims and Australia Muslim is that the start of the community, maybe you can corroborate this or not, that different to the US community, generally the US community was sort of founded by, in the 70s, by more like white collar sort of professionals, while in the UK, the roots of the community is blue collar workers. Australia is very similar. Our Yugoslav community, Yugoslav, Turkish, Lebanese. So it's a very blue collar and it's much more like a down to earth community, maybe you could say. And that saves us from a lot of like, how do I put it? Like becoming too smart for deen. So they're very simple in the way. And
they come with their scholars. They establish the madrasa, masjid. Whereas in America, it started with Sunday schools. For the Muslim students. They'd have an Islamic center, a masjid, and then have Sunday school.
To align with the culture.
It was like almost like a an afterthought.
Yeah.
Like, we need to do something for our deen.
Yeah.
Because in America, the focus is all on education.
It's like a school education, secular.
It's just education, because the parents are educated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Academic or some kind of degree or something. So the children have to go through that.
I think the subcontinent crowd here is very similar to that.
Yeah, but they're not the dominant culture of the Muslims.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they're not the
But in
dominant.
terms of education.
Yeah, they're similar. I mean, the Indian Pakistani here is similar, but because it's not the dominant culture, that sort of aspect doesn't get the... Egyptians are like that. They are very similar to subcontinent. They have that education. One of my friends from high school, he was saying his father was like pushing him so hard for education, because then he found his father's school report and he goes, he's got less mark. Because I don't know why you're hitting me over the head with my pushing me more, but then...
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it as long as it doesn't come at the expense of the deen.
Yes.
They've just not understood how to do both. So the deen can suffer. I'm not saying that's everybody.
Yes.
Whereas in England, alhamdulillah, now, I think we're leading the way in terms of even India, Pakistan. A number of India and Pakistan are learning from England in terms of having students who are university educated, PhD, masters, etc., plus alim, and we got a number of madrasas doing that.
Which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
That was never something in India, Pakistan, because it was one way or the other. Now I've seen institutes that are marrying both together now, doing that from the UK.
Yeah, mashallah. Yeah, I think there's a lot to take. I visited several countries that were, to look at examples of maktabs and so forth. And the UK, for me, I mean, we talked about this before as well, but the UK for me, especially London, especially, where's that? Sheikh Hassan Ali's maktab. It's in an area but it's like a lot of Turkish community there and so forth. And I found, that's very similar to Australia. It's not like East London where it's like a huge concentration of Muslims. It's like very sparse.
It's probably North London.
Yeah, so it resonated, and I said, the education system is a photocopy in Australia. It's more copies the UK model than the US model, and a lot of our culture, we have the same king, and cultural. There's a lot of things that we take more from the UK than we take from the US, although we influence heavily by US culture as well. But it resonated, and I said, okay. They seem to, these are things, that's why we brought the Safar, I brought the Safar syllabus into our maktabs here. And all the other syllabus, mashallah, they're all good. And the Faraya, the wudu are not going to change.
England is leading the world for syllabus. You've got the Nasiha syllabus, you've got the Safar Academy, and you've got this Islamia one.
Madras Islamia in Batley?
In Batley.
Yeah.
Theirs is nearly fully developed as well. So it's quite amazing.
And exporting to the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I visited all of them and spent time. For me, Safar was like the one that stood out for me, and I sort of got along with their team and their training and things, and it was no frills. It was very straightforward. I said it worked for us, for our maktab,
Alhamdulillah.
And we have 150
It's
kids.
good to have this variety anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I felt like the some of from a certain country, they got very upset that we sort of replaced the syllabus, the UK syllabus. we sort of replaced it with the UK syllabus. I said, like Hazrat, the Faraya, the wudu don't change. In all of these books, the Faraya, the wudu exactly the same. The core things are the same. It's just the style of it. Because I grew up here, primary school, university, everything here. I felt that the students are going through the same schooling system that I went through. It works, alhamdulillah. For us, it worked. And Nasiha is in some places doing Nasiha as well. And it works for them. And it's not a huge, as one alim from Sydney put it nicely, he uses the South African syllabus, but he said he feels like that the South African syllabus and Nasiha is trying to make you an alim to a certain degree. And while the Safar one is trying to make you a practicing Muslim in the West, even though he uses the other syllabus, but he saw the positives in each one. Has a very certain focus areas, and they have their benefits. And wherever they've been taught, the communities, alhamdulillah, benefiting. And so there's a lot and they spell things correctly. They don't spell like the Americans. So we have the same spelling.
Spelling.
Yeah, we have the same spelling as the British. So, okay. But anyway.
Yeah, White Thread Press Books had American spelling until about 2013, 14.
All right. And then
we've switched to a British again.
Okay.
Because that's where we are now. So
yeah. So you imposed it on the American audience?
No, I mean, it doesn't really make much of a difference.
It's a few words, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the Z and the Z and so on.
Yeah.
But it's because Prudence Publication is something I started when I was at Madrasa. That was our first name.
Okay.
when I first published the Fiqh al-Imam and the Reflections of Both while studying, and the Zad al-Talibin translation.
So you published that?
Yeah, I did that translation, published it in Darul Berry
Sure.
while I was studying. And then when I moved to America, I felt Prudence was just a bit too pompous a name. So I came up with...
For America?
Yeah. No, just in general.
Yeah.
Because, and then we named it White Thread Press, and that my intention was to stay in America,
Mm.
So I said, okay, it's American English.
Okay, which
Right.
makes sense.
I came back to England. I was like, yeah, I need to move back to British English. But it's difficult once you got all your processes in place.
Yeah.
Because it kind of becomes your standard, your house style. Alhamdulillah, we moved back to British English anyway.
Made tawbah and
So whilst you were studying in madrasa, you were publishing these books.
Yeah, so...
How did you find time for this?
Yeah.
Or what
it's,
drove you to do this?
I don't know. That's a difficult one. So I think there's two things. Number one, in my second year of the course, I went to study in a madrasa in India called Falah-e Darain, Madrasa Falah-e Darain in Tarkeswar in Gujarat.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
The principal at the time, he was actually an adib, like a literature scholar, like a really good scholar, but somehow he'd been pushed into this principal position. I don't think he really liked it, right?
Mm.
And I remember him grabbing me once. So he used to grab people and, tell them off and things like that. Because the principal. But he used to grab me and he would say, you need to write something.
Right.
Yeah. This was my second year. He said, you need to write. Remember, he gave me the example of Sheikh Abul Hassan Ali Nadwi. He says that wherever Sheikh Abul Hassan, rahimahullah, at that time he was alive, wherever he goes, he'll spend an hour or two on a little desk and he'll write something. Okay, I don't know why he was telling me this, but
Okay.
somehow it resonated. Then I'd gone to America for Taraweeh, probably the year before, maybe a year before that.
Whilst you were studying.
Yeah, in Ramadan.
Okay.
Right? And it was this masjid in Philadelphia run by this old Hyderabadi uncle.
Of course it was.
His name is Ahmad Bhai, and his sister,
Right.
Aisha. I don't know if they're still alive. I think one of them definitely died, rahimahullah. They were 70 at that time. Never got married. This brother and sister never got married and were running this masjid in this completely African-American area and a very dangerous area at that. It was really strange. They used to run that masjid, mostly African-Americans. No, this was...
Philadelphia.
This was in Philadelphia,
Okay.
Susquehanna Avenue near...
Wow. He remembers that.
Yeah. It's near the Temple University. Now I heard it's all gentrified. They used to tell us, don't go out at night because you hear gunshots and everything like that. It was a very bad area in that sense. So he had a bookshop. So when we finished the Taraweeh, it's me and one of our older, actually colleagues from the madrasa. He's now one of the teachers in 2 madrasas down there, Hafiz Bashir. He said, go into this bookshop and pick whichever book you want and you should write something.
Okay.
It's quite a well-stocked bookstore. And I picked a few books. And then after that, when I went to England, and the way it started was that I did the first year of Alim course there, of the Alimiyya program in England, in Darul Berry, right, where I did my Hifz course as well. Then I kind of got sick of being in England for whatever reason. I said, let me have a change of scene. So I went to India to study for a year. It was a solid madrasa. That was one of my most productive years. But then I decided to come back. I said, if I stay here, my English is going to deteriorate. My dawah is going to be in English, right? Although it's a solid madrasa, there were challenges though. It's very hot and everything. So then I came back. And in that year, I'd actually missed a very important book that I really wanted to do. So in the second year in Darul Berry, they teach Zad al-Talibin, which is provisions for the seekers. Whereas in India, they don't teach it.
Okay.
In the second year, they teach other books. And there was another Sharh Mi'at Amil they'd done in the first year in India. So I missed that as well. Whereas in Darul, they should have done it in the second year.
Okay.
So I missed that. So I come back and I'm like, these 2 books I should probably do, right? So I asked one of our teachers, Hafiz Ahmed, Allah bless him, can you teach me Sharh Mi'at Amil? He's a very eccentric, really interesting kind of teacher. So we did a few pages and he goes, now you know aapko aage jao. You don't need to study this book anymore. I said, okay, cool. Zad al-Talibin though, I said, how do I get that? Because
Provisions for the seekers.
So I just started translating it, just something Allah Ta'ala gave me.
From Arabic to English.
From Arabic to English. So I started translating instead. I don't know why. Again, I just don't know why. Right? Then I think about it. Started translating it. And then in the 4th year of the course, the older students, the 4th year students had to teach the youngest Hifz class students, those who are becoming Hafiz, some basics like du'as and basic fiqh and that, because they are spending their time memorizing the Quran and in school. But they need to know this other information like fiqh and a bit of history and a bit of du'as and all of that. So the older students are made to teach them. So I don't know, I was very pedantic, I think, from before. So what happens is I can't find a dua book which has all sahih du'as in there, right?
Okay.
I still remember Bismillah wa barakatillah is the real dua. And all the books had Bismillah wa ala barakatillah. Not a big deal, but
Is that right?
yeah. There's no wa ala barakah. I've checked everywhere. There's no wa ala
Just
barakatillah.
Bismillah wa
It's
barakatillah.
Bismillah. In fact, the majority of hadith say Sammillah. Take the name of Allah. Wherever there's a formula, it's Bismillah wa barakatillah in Hakim's Mustadrak, if I still remember correctly. I still remember in the library, me and Maulana Ina'amuddin, who is my partner in that book, we were going through all the books to try to find it. So it's Bismillah wa barakatillah. So we said, let's compile our own. That's where Reflections of Pearls came out. That we won't do it ourselves with our own, style. And then what happens is one of our teachers said that who can write about 10 articles or 12 articles on some issues of prayer, Hanafi evidence for certain issues of prayer, because we had the hot Salafis at that time. They were at their peak in the 90s. Causing a huge confusion.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah, since that 25 years, brain drain has stopped now, and alhamdulillah, we worked with many Salafis or ex-Salafis or whatever. There's just a few extreme ones left, right? Alhamdulillah, the majority of them are very cool now, right? We work with them and they've understood the problems with their ways and things like that. So who's going to write 12 articles for a journal in the madrasa that they used to have called Subul Salam? So I just put my hand up. So I started writing.
Just randomly, let me give it a go.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just very competitive and adventurous.
Okay.
Right? So I said, yeah, I'll do that. So I started writing. I didn't know how to write.
Okay.
I mean, I'd never done any kind of writing before except a few essays or something for the GCSEs, So I wrote the chapter on Ameen bil Jahr, reading the Ameen aloud or silently. I wrote that. That's a relatively short chapter. And there were one or two other guys in my class and someone else that I rated their English. So I said, can you please edit these for me? So the guy edited Maulana Mansoor Geluna and Maulana Habibur Rahman. I think these were the two guys. And then I wrote Qira'ah khalf al-Imam, whether you should read Qira'ah, whether you should recite behind the Imam when you're standing or not. That's a much more multifaceted and a more comprehensive chapter. When I finished writing that one, I checked the Ameen one again, and I had to rewrite it. That's how much I developed. So for those who want to write, you have to write to develop.
Just write.
I mean, you can go and take a formal course, but if you want to do it yourself, you just have to write, get it edited, write. And so I developed. So it never got published in the journal, in the Subul Salam for whatever reason. I turned it into a book, and it was one of the first books out there, along with Albani Unveiled. And it was a hit. So within 3 months, 1,000 copies got sold out. That's amazing. Your first book. I think that was our first book.
Which year was this?
1996, I think.
It's amazing, that book. You know where I saw it? It might still be there in Carpark Masjid
Really?
in the 90s. Like
it was
Turkish
everywhere.
Masjid.
That's my masjid.
His masjid. And
Okay.
so that was like one of the Fiqh al-Imam, was one of the books. It was just there in the...
And that was the book you wrote.
Yeah. So-
It's amazing that in 3 months, 1,000 copies went out.
Inshallah.
And that for one of your first books, it's like this,
Confidence boost.
amazing. It's like, you want to do it again.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Wow.
So then that was only 9 chapters in there, I think, 9 chapters. And then the next year I added 3 more chapters and republished 3,000 copies. Now they got sold out in a year, which is still not bad, even for today's standards.
Yeah.
For just a regular book, because it was a hot topic of the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? So that's how that started. Now, I don't want to get into this right now, but
Get into
I
it.
worked,
It's
I worked
interesting.
very hard for the first 4 years
Of your alim
of
course.
an alim course. And if you work hard for the first 3 years at least, the rest of it becomes easy because your foundation is solid. Because then after that, it's just understanding and comprehension, because you've got your foundation, your Arabic is solid, and it's very good, right?
Yep.
You can't mess around in your first few years. If you do that, you're going to struggle for the rest, because you're going to be struggling. You don't know what they're saying. You don't know what the texts are saying. But if you know that, if you know what the texts are saying, it's fine. So my last 2 years or 3 years, the 4th year, 5th year, and 6th year was spent writing books.
Whilst you were studying?
Oh, yeah. I used to still come first.
MashaAllah.
I used to still sit first, read the ibarat and everything. It was a competition between myself and Maulana Inamuddin, Allah bless him, right? But yeah, I used to still come first most of the time, right? But I used to write books. And I remember exam time, because we had to get books usually ready for Ramadan, because that's when that's when everybody's going out. We actually send the books with them to their different areas. Had to be ready. And it was a race against time. And if you know publishing, there's just so many little things you have to do, especially if you're a perfectionist, to get it done. Right.
So sorry, when you say you have to send the books out, so these are guys that are going out to read Tarawih in different places,
Tarawih or hometowns or whatever. So you take them, and if there's anybody interested, they'll take them. That was one way of distribution at the time.
Yep, that's interesting.
So we had to get it ready and printed, and printing takes 2-3 weeks, so it had to be printed before that. That was a race against time. So I still remember
during exams, all this
during exam time.
Yep.
Right. During exam time, I used to do takrar, which is review the lesson with the class. And it's all done by 9 o'clock. 10 o'clock is usually sleeping time.
Yep.
Right? And 9 o'clock, I look at the clock. I got 6 hours.
Wow.
For 5 weeks straight, I said I had 6 hours. We used to work from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the morning.
MashaAllah.
And there were all these, I had certain privileges in madrasa because I had certain jobs, which mean I didn't have to close the light at 10 o'clock. And I could do, I had some privileges, alhamdulillah. I didn't misuse them, inshallah. Right? So I had about 5 or 6 people in my small room, somebody typing up, somebody referencing, somebody editing. They just loved it. Yeah. Because they're all part of the process.
When did you guys sleep?
All of them. Well, they would start leaving, but I would, me and maybe at least one other person, 3 o'clock.
You sleep at 3 and wake
up
for
about 5 weeks straight. And then you're back up for Fajr about 5 o'clock or something. Then there's an exam.
Wow.
Right? Or there might be a little break and then there's an exam. Then after the exam, you come and have a little nap again. Okay. Right? But that was the tartib of 5 weeks for 2 years. Right?
Wow.
Towards the end of Ramadan. So do I regret it? No. I mean, if I didn't do that, I could have probably looked at commentaries of Jalalain and Mishkat and Hidayah. I could have done a lot more on that instead of spending time writing books. But I think the books were needed, and I don't regret it today.
The books. I think they resonate with the topic. Like Fiqh al-Imam, because as a teenager, I remember picking that up and reading the mosque, and it was like, because at that time we would get bombarded the same issues, the hardcore Salafis at that time were having, and then it's like all of a sudden there's like answers. That's why I remember with myself, and it's like, these are, shouldn't say that, but these are the comebacks, and these are all the these are defenses, and you know, like, we should have a confidence and saying that what we're doing is
exactly that was the purpose of it.
And so it did definitely in Melbourne, on the other side of the world, it resonated with some teenager.
I mean, South America, I've got people telling me from there that this book kept us Muslim.
Subhanallah.
Wow.
They exaggerate and say that because they were getting confused, and he said that this made us like confident again.
Wow.
I knew it was from Allah. I actually lived in London, and the madrasa, Darul Uloom Bury, was 4 hours away. We used to go back 4 times a year to visit our parents. I remember actually staying back in one of those very valuable holidays to write this book. So I didn't go home. So there's that book was a lot of sacrifice, and that's why it's probably got more acceptance.
So you were reading that as a teenager?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I wasn't picking up that book as a teenager.
But you still became Hanbali, right?
Well, that's
what happened?
Well, that's, you improve and you upgrade.
We can't all be perfect.
You upgrade, and we were in a WhatsApp group the other day, and somebody asked, like, how Hanafi are you? And I said, I'm as what is it? I'm as Hanafi as Qadi Abu Yusuf student, Imam Ahmad Hanbal. So anyway, alhamdulillah, we're the latest new, with the iPhone 15, with the latest version. But
they're just trying to preserve a dying madhab, alhamdulillah. So it's all right.
We're holding the fort, alhamdulillah.
He thinks he is anyway.
Look, your chapter on Amin bil Jahar is not ma'mul in Australia. It's not practiced in Australia. You probably noticed.
What's Amin bil Jahar?
The loud Amin, you probably never experienced it in Australia because
some
everyone.
people do it.
No, I'm saying as a mosque in Salat, everyone does Ameen loud Ameen. Have you been to a masjid where everyone's silent?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, I don't
even the
understand
Hanafis
nuances.
read Ameen loudly.
Even Faulkner.
Even Faulkner and that. Even
No, man. Hanafis do not read it.
no, they do, but the mosque overall.
Let's move on.
Yeah, I know. He's just trying to make himself feel
Yeah,
better.
you were saying?
Yeah.
I have a question. You've probably answered this many times, but what got you into madrasa? Like growing up in the UK, right? What was your childhood development? Were your parents ulama or?
Yeah, you're around in the family.
Okay.
And my answer is very simple. I mean, my dad's an alim and a maulana.
Mashallah.
His father was a hafiz. His brothers are hafiz. My mum's dad is a hafiz and a qari.
Yep.
From Lucknow. Her brother's a mufti. It ran in the family, man.
But so did you?
But I
feel
don't think that's the
compelled?
reason. No,
That you had to do it because of the family.
Not at all. That's what I want to explain.
Yeah.
That's my easy answer, right? But when I actually think about it,
I want
the
the hard
real
answer.
reason, when I went to madrasa, I said it was 4 hours away. I had to wash my own clothes at the age of 11 and a half.
What?
It
Is
was
that when
a
you
tough
started
days.
madrasa?
Sorry, yeah.
You started madrasa at 11 and a half.
Before high school. I was sent before high school.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
And I don't regret it one bit until today. Like literally not an iota of doubt or
Yep.
with the embarrassment or remorse or anything of that nature. I cried for a few months homesick, but I never wanted to leave. I wanted to carry on and do it. Never once did I feel like I don't want to do this anymore.
Not because you felt compelled because the whole family's done it,
no,
but
not at
just
all.
from yourself.
Not at all, because my dad actually wanted me to be an architect,
Oh, there you go.
right?
Yep.
But I think if I really think about it, which I think other people can do, it's a transferable point I'm making. Because for me to say everybody was an alim, so I did it, that's not transferable. Because
That's the easy way out.
well, the thing is that you can't do that
That's correct.
except for your next generation.
Yeah.
But what you can do is the deen was glorified in my house in the sense that
Right.
anytime somebody memorized the Quran or somebody did some achievement, it was like, wow, look what they've done. So that was the ambition. That was seen as the objective.
That's the motivation.
Massive motivation, a lot of respect.
Yep.
It's like, I need to do that as well. There's just so much going for that.
And even like my father as well, he didn't want me to go to madrasa.
I know,
Like,
IT.
I went to IT and I was studying.
He wasn't against me then going. He actually then wanted me to go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because my dad is an alim himself, but he could not follow that career as such or that path. I don't want to say career, that path. He did not become an imam and so on. Yes, he was an ad hoc imam, informal, but he ran a bit. He used to work for. He was actually the manager for one of the main Indian sweets companies, Ambala Sweet Center.
So you've got like a main Indian sweet company. We don't even have a main.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple. But Ambala Sweet Center is probably the oldest.
Punjabi sweets.
UK.
1965 or something like that. So he was the manager of their head branch.
Yep.
He's dealing with a lot of customers. That means Asians and others who are coming to buy mitai. And he's just here talking to them. And he's just realizing how they're so messed up. People are getting messed up now.
Oh, wow.
Right?
In the 60s.
No, this would be probably, this would be late 70s.
Wow.
The shop started earlier. I can't remember exactly.
In the
which
late
year.
70s, he was like,
Late
people are
70s,
messed
he
up.
is hearing people, right?
Yeah.
Because England, in the beginning, there is a whole different culture. So he said, no, I need to get my kids to study the deen. So he changed his mind. But alhamdulillah, I got a PhD, so he's very happy with that.
Yeah, my father wasn't supportive initially, but eventually saw that, and then he was like my biggest supporter. I think what it was is because he was imam for so long, and the hardships that came along, the challenges came, he didn't want his kids to go through that. Of course, he wants kids, his deen. Like he was upset one day. He said to my mum, in Brazil when he was imam, there was an Arab family there, and the kids didn't speak Arabic. So what they did was after the father died, they collected all his Arabic books and made a big fire. And he said, maybe my kids will one day, his library, that's half the books that you see outside in the madrasa here. That's actually my father's books. And he said, one day maybe my kids will make a big, He was one night talking to my mother and alhamdulillah, he said after when I started studying, because I used to just like take his books home, like his sets used to go missing from the house. And so he said that alhamdulillah, at least somebody will benefit from them. So maybe that
he used those books and became a humbly.
But anyway, Mufti, one of the things we wanted to just ask you about, and it's getting late, we don't want to take too much of your time, you do have a drive back. Mashallah, on the Zamzam, it's on the YouTube channel as well, and it's on the, I believe the same videos are displayed on the website or on the Zamzam. So you did a series on Tasawwuf, and it was an interesting series, it's 24 so videos, and it's more you say academic look at and presentation of Tasawwuf or Sufism, and you did a lot of the objections. Imam Dardir's end of his Aqidah book explanation, and I think you mentioned that it's the definition that you gave is the purity of deen. That it's I put it like as the quality, improving the quality of your deen. And of course, there's a lot of stigma associated with it. Certain people have leaned into it and they've attacked it, and even the people that supported.
Are you talking about Sufism?
Yeah, Sufism, Tasawwuf, yeah.
Okay.
It's usually interchangeably. In Australia, we have weird Sufi. I don't know, in England, you have like non-Muslim Sufis, which is like a weird, strange phenomena. Like I met these people. Like
non-Muslim Sufis.
Yeah, they do like zikr, but then they like the whirling and whatnot.
In America, they would call and say, do you have any Sufi sessions? It's like, what do you mean? I say, yeah, we have them 5 times a day.
Yeah.
What did they used to say?
So
They weren't looking for that. They weren't looking for namaz. Yeah.
The things like
I like that.
One of the things that are in Australia, just from experience with brothers looking at the Tasawwuf from the outside, especially for Australian, the average Australian who's practicing and who wants to develop further in their deen, they are put off about a lot of the extra baggage, maybe cultural baggage has been brought in, a special scarf, a special, the paraphernalia and the way it's presented, and extra things that are done that just look odd. They don't, like they will be a Jummah, there will be a 5-time Salat, there will be, like the basics of deen for them is more than enough. This extra thing it doesn't fit in with the general, like the lifestyle of a practicing Muslim, what we understand generally in Australia. So if you take like an average of an Australian community, practicing community, a lot of the Tasawwuf that is coming, different brands of Tasawwuf, there's so many different types that are coming in that the phone calls that I get from young people, right, either they'll be going really hard against it, this is just too strange, they'll be sending videos to me, this hadr has been done, look, what's going on here? Or they will be doing some other practices. And is there a Tasawwuf that is, you could say, adjusted, where it takes in the core Sharia? I'm coming from their point of view that, all right, we can focus on a tazkiyah, spirituality without, astaghfirullah azim, but the weirdness. Like it can be a very normative practice.
I think we have to kind of maybe define what the weirdness of it is. But yes, there are some exotic practices, completely degenerated exotic practices. We have nothing to do with Tasawwuf, but they've just become culturally attached or they've just become attached to it. Then there are some Sufi practices that seem odd, like the hadra. That's not cultural. That's when they stand up and they say Allah, Allah, and they kind of seem to
move.
They're moving up and down usually, or some side to side or something like that. So there are different types of tasawwuf, right? And some are very, you can say, sober. So the Naqshbandis are very, very sober. You don't even know they're doing tasawwuf. They'll just have their head down, right? As though they're having a little nap or something like that, right? So there's different types of tasawwuf. So I follow the Naqshbandi and the Chishti branch of tasawwuf. Now, Chishti is also, they're very sober in the sense, they have a bit of head movement, like La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, right? And Allah, Allah, Allah. Right? They have that, but there's nothing else. There's no body movements as such beyond just a head movement there. And they say that that is actually for an effective way of how to instill La ilaha illallah in your heart. So they're saying that that's just a wasila. So aside from that, when you then say, what happens in tasawwuf is that it's a very, very close relationship with the sheikh. So, and then some sheikhs actually, you can say, promote this or encourage this, that everybody dress a certain way. While others don't, but some of the close followers, they encourage it and then everybody wants to copy and it becomes a bit cultish.
We were talking about the cultish.
So it becomes a bit cultish not by design, but just by an organic kind of process. The sheikh has to be very careful. So I have to tell people, in fact, I tell people who become murids that you don't even tell anybody you're a murid. Why should you?
Yeah.
Like what, you've reached now that you become a murid? It's like you've joined the club. So you're telling everybody I'm
signaling to everybody else. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, it doesn't make you any better that you're a murid now. Yes, you're on the path. It's for your own purpose that you've joined so that you get the barakah of the tariq and you get a guided, dhikr and other disciplinary training. That's for you now. You don't have to tell anybody. Yes, if you want to share it with somebody who needs it, the guy's struggling, and you want to share it with them and you found benefit, go ahead and share it. But don't go and tell, hey, I did beta with that person. I did beta with so-and-so sheikh. That doesn't do anything for you.
It might be detrimental.
In fact, you might be showing off that, hey, I'm maybe something now. So that's how I deal with it. I also don't encourage like that you have to dress with a particular hat. Or a particular turban or a particular jubba. I wear different things all the time so that, there's various different ways you can do things. Not that there's anything wrong with any of that. It's just then what happens with some people that either you're in or you're not. Then you can't be like just benefit from there because you feel that I don't necessarily want to change this. So I've been in certain tariqas where I was the odd one out. Like I would join a certain session and I'd be the odd one out because I'm not conforming to the dress code. Not that it was a dress code, it was just everybody decided that that's what they're going to wear.
And so people are compelled to do that even if they don't want to because, well, I've got to be part of the
They feel that, or there may be some other person in there who's saying, hey, you should do this as well. Do you want to buy this? Do you want to wear it like this? Not that there's anything wrong with that. You understand? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So,
but maybe for the West, it's not
because we have
transferable.
I think in Australia especially, we are very non-conforming and we smell cult. We I don't know, maybe it's a British thing as well, but we really have a sensitivity to like cultish behavior and how
do you deal with that? Or what do you say?
Is that a problem in us?
No, I mean the thing is that we can't say it's a problem and then not help anybody. There's simple organic tasawwuf.
Okay.
You do this much dhikr, you have any other issues, let's discuss it, carry on with your life.
Yes.
So when you say
do your qada prayers, dress properly, doesn't have to be with this hat or that hat, just dress properly, modestly, and do your prayers on time, do your istighfar, do your adhkar, do your tawbah, and be a good Muslim. That's all our tasawwuf is. That's the tasawwuf I'm pushing.
Yeah, and interesting, you're saying about the organic sort of development of dress code and so forth. In Pakistan, they have the youth club. It's like a sort of Salafi organization. They all wear baseball cap. That's their Khanka cap, I think. Like they all wear baseball.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying that but they all wear it and they make it a point to wear it, and it's all sort of sudden. So people ask questions.
That's just when people go to university, they buy hoodies. Of that university. Right. It's just everybody does that.
Year 12, like the year 12 jump.
Because I've seen and I've read so much of this, I try to discourage these things, like actively. But you don't have to.
Maybe
there's
that's
nothing wrong with it.
Maybe that's the weirdness that we are, and we have to sort of like differentiate between things that are all right. It is weird,
and I think it's weird. The word is not weird. The differentness.
It's just
weird gives it a different connotation.
No, it's like not bad. It's just okay. They're doing. It's not wrong, but it's just.
It's not what we're used to.
Yeah, we're not used to, especially in Australia. Like
I think even the understanding of tasawwuf in Australia is not what maybe
I think
other
that's what,
places
because
have.
you've had people need to understand what the goal of tasawwuf is first. It's not
or
join
what?
a club.
What is it? Like that's the thing.
It's just to purify your deen and your intention ultimately.
Yeah. I read a beautiful quote at Tabaqat Sufiya and Bazunnun Misri, rahimahullah, and someone said, someone asked him, what is Mada Sufi? What is a Sufi? And he said, إِذَا نَتَقَ أَبَانَ الْحَقَائِقِ. When he speaks, the realities become clear. وَإِذَا سَكَتَ نَتَقَتِ الْجَوَارِحُ أَنْ تَرْكَ الْعَلَائِقِ. And he goes, when he remains silent, the limbs speak, mean his actions, of his disconnection from everyone other than Allah. When he prays, when you look at him praying, you know that he's elevated in his salat. He's elevated salat. That he's not. He's connected to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala in his ibadah. So it's just a brief, nice definition of what a Sufi is. It's not a specific dress code. It's about his speech is purified and it's beneficial, and then his actions are purified, and even just to look at it is beneficial. And I thought that's a very, for me, yeah, we are. I don't know, for me, that was like I said, that's a beautiful way to describe it.
It's just humans do taqleed, right? Meaning we just follow. So they want to follow their sheikh. They want to follow what everybody else is doing. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. You understand? And I'm sure Australia has its own issues. I'm hearing somebody was asking me a question the other day in Australia that many Australians men will wear earrings and some jewelry. So that's a taqleed. So when you say Australians don't like that, I mean, that's just not even right to say that, because they have their own little weird things.
Now
That's human beings, every human being. There's no community that is unique in that sense.
You've got to be part of a club.
Yeah.
Like footy fans.
Yeah.
Collingwood.
Yeah, British football fans, yeah. Football hooligans.
I think it's just it's just the problem with the unknown. I don't know what this is, so they think it's some weird thing.
So how do you make it known?
Well, you just talk about what tasawwuf is, as I have tried to explain. And if anybody's listened to that, they've understood that it's just a very simple pathway to Allah. It's just a serious, earnest pathway to Allah.
I find personally the tasawwuf of like reading the books of Ibn Qayyim, and I find them very like spiritually enlightening. Like even Mawlana Zakaria Rahmatullah said about Jawab al-Kafi. Basically a guy wrote a question, said, I'm committing sins, and the more I try to leave it, the more difficult it becomes. And he gives this like 250-page book as an answer. And Mawlana Zakaria said every student of knowledge should read this book. And if you read the book from beginning, it's all helping the person. It's like little therapy sessions, counsel session advices to enhance the quality, improve and purify the deen. And
the same people who glorify Ibn Qayyim and Ibn Taymiyyah are the ones who deny tasawwuf, whereas Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim are massive Sufis.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's the
massive Sufis.
Yeah. Volume 10, 11 of Majmu' Fatawa is, it's also tasawwuf.
The whole thing is tasawwuf.
Yeah.
And it's proper tasawwuf they were into.
So
and like deep tasawwuf, like even...
So is that just because these guys
not degenerated tasawwuf, which they spoke out against, which we agree with, but they were into tasawwuf. Everybody was into tasawwuf in those days.
Yeah.
Until the early 19th century.
Yeah, and here recently... like
is that a result of colonialism?
Lots of reasons, yeah.
Yeah. And there was one of the books I was reading, they were talking about Madaruj al-Salikin, one of Ibn Qayyim's books, which is a very beautiful book, and the stages that, the grades as you get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But one of the Saudi scholars, he said, لكنه تأثر ببعض أقوال الصوفية. Because it's a good book, but he got affected by some of the words of the Sufis.
You got to translate what you just said.
I just translated that. You weren't listening. So he got affected. It's a good book, but he got affected by some of the statements of the Sufis, which it doesn't. But I think they get turned off by certain terminologies. And even when a student in madrasa was asking me, he's studying in South Africa at the moment, and he said, "Oh, Ibn Taymiyyah, what about him?" I said, "There's Majmu' Fatawa. Grab volume 10, open any page, open it, and if you open it." And even the Salafis today, they don't read this stuff and they can't explain it. And I said, open it and read it. And he opened up the book, and the first thing is, Qala, he says, Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani says about Fana.
Like Ibn Taymiyyah had huge respect for Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani.
Yes.
Huge respect.
Yeah. And he quotes him, and then Sharh of Fana Fillah, it's a very high concept in Tasawwuf. He's explaining it, he's elaborating in a beautiful way, explaining Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani's, it's a Tasawwuf concept that he's explaining, like you wouldn't hear this from the modernists, like the modern types today, these type of statements or explanation of these ideas and how to improve the deen like this. But anyway, that series is mashallah, it's a really beneficial series, 24 videos. And you can find it on the Zamzam YouTube channel and also on the website as well, mashallah. Mufti Sahib, Jazakumullah khair, we've taken a lot of your time. I'm conscious of the time, we've taken an hour. You have a 40-minute drive back. So Jazakumullah khair. And we hope to see you sooner. Not next Ramadan. You have to come earlier.
He's saying he's coming back we'll talk.
In Sydney.
We need to talk.
Sydney, a day in Sydney, a day or two in Sydney. That's
I'll come there, pick you up, and we'll do a road trip. Let's do a road trip.
Inshallah. Barakallah feekum. And inshallah, we have to. Mufti Sahib, we're going to Perth the last 10 days Ramadan. You'll be there, inshallah. And inshallah. So we hope to see you.
So remember us in your du'as.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and don't forget that bell icon.